Hello and welcome to another historic video. Today I'm gonna revisit the monogreen devotion ramp deck, which got a few new tools that we can search up out of the sideboard with Karn, including the Chain Veil, so that's quite exciting. The core principle of the deck is still the same. We're trying to put a lot of green devotion on the battlefield and then abuse Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, to tap for an obscene amount of mana, untap it with Kiora, Behemoth, Beckoner, and then eventually Karn, the Great Creator, can search up all sorts of win conditions out of the sideboard, as long as they're artifacts, and that now also includes the Chain Veil, a 4-mana artifact that can tap for 4 mana, letting us activate our Planeswalkers an additional time, and that ability can stack. So if we play Chain Veil, activate it, we might be able to untap it with Kiora, tap it again, and now we get to activate all our Planeswalkers 3 times, including Planeswalkers we might play in the future. So Karn can minus multiple times, get multiple artifacts out of the sideboard. Once Kiora gets to untap enough times, we can also untap Nykthos to make more mana, and essentially keep untapping the Chain Veil over and over. And then at some point, the win condition that we can also get with Karn out of the sideboard is a Pestilent Cauldron, which is a 3-mana artifact, so it's legal to get with Karn out of the sideboard, but we're actually more interested in the backside of this artifact, which is Restorative Burst, a 5-mana sorcery that returns up to 2 targeted creature, land, and or planeswalker cards from our graveyard to our hand. Each player gains 4, and then we exile the Restorative Burst, which is actually quite convenient, because Karn's -2 ability gets artifacts not only out of the sideboard, but also out of exile. So now we can get back the Pestilent Cauldron, which is the side that matters once it's in exile, and then replay our Restorative Burst over and over, setting up this infinite loop where we can keep getting back our Karns and Kioras out of the graveyard, as well as letting each player gain 4 life. And then once we've gone through this loop enough times, we can cast the front side of Cauldron and actually activate it to mill the opponent out, since they'll have gained 60 plus life, so we can easily just mill them out in one shot. So that's the convoluted win condition. Usually we don't get to that point, since once we have 20 plus mana floating and a bunch of planeswalkers in play, the opponent tends to concede, but that's theoretically what we're capable of. Then rounding out the deck, we do have some mana elves. We've got Birds of Paradise, in fact, which can make a mana of any color, so that's useful for maybe casting the Pestilent Cauldron at some point, as well as being a flying blocker, which can be useful. Then we've got the classic Lenor elves, as well as Fanatic of Aronas, which can make 4 mana if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, can also be eternalized out of the graveyard, and that's another 4-powered creature entering and drawing a card with Kiora, so that's all very useful. And then Oath of Nissa, another recent addition to the format, a way to find lands, creatures, and planeswalkers, so that can find our Nykthos if needed, as well as Kiora and Karn, so incredibly useful, as well as upping our devotion. Utopia Sprawl can also help us make more mana and is quite synergistic with Kiora. And then besides our planeswalkers, we're also playing 8 Leylines that can start out on the battlefield if we have them in our opening hand. Leyline of Abundance, quite synergistic with our 12 mana creatures, which will now make an additional green mana, and that ability also stacks the more Leylines of Abundance we have in play. Can eventually be a win condition as well. If we pay 8 mana, we can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control. And then the Leyline of the Guild Pact is a little bit more synergistic with Nykthos, since it adds 4 green devotion as opposed to just 2 from a Leyline of Abundance. So that's purely the only reason why we're playing it, is increasing our devotion as quickly as possible. And that can potentially set up a turn 2 kill already if we have enough Leylines in our opener, maybe a turn 1 mana creature, turn 2 Nykthos, activate it, and then go off from there. And another important piece of the puzzle is Cavalier of Thorns, adding 3 green devotion for Nykthos, as well as potentially finding a Nykthos in the top 5 cards of our library and putting it in play untapped, so we can immediately activate it, as well as milling additional cards into the graveyard, which might include Storm the Festival, which we can cast for 6 mana, flashback for 10 mana, looking at the top 5 cards of our library, putting up to 2 permanents with mana value 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield, and that's also untapped, so it can also help find Nykthos to keep activating it and make more mana, as well as find our various planeswalkers. And then eventually what we're hoping to get to is a board state with around 8 devotion, 8 mana floating, and then we want Kiora. Karn we can still activate as well, and then we also want a second planeswalker in circulation, so we can eventually get it back out of the graveyard using our Restorative Burst, and then from there we should be able to combo off, but there's a lot of different permutations that can lead to a victory. And then the sideboard, besides Pestilent Cauldron and our Chain Veil, also includes Tormod's Crypt as a bit of graveyard hate that we can immediately play after minusing Karn. We've got liquid metal coating, also quite synergistic with Karn, as we can target an opposing land so that it cannot make any additional mana that turn, and then we can also plus Karn on that same land, immediately destroying it since its mana value will be 0, so that's also repeatable land destruction. Then we've got our Mindslaver, another fun off here that can let us control the opponent's next turn, can also be quite powerful under the right circumstance. We've got Cityscape Leveler if we need to blow something up, and finally Vault of Whispers as an artifact land we can find with Karn in case we're about to miss our land drop for the turn, plus it's also black mana to cast our Pestilent Cauldron, since sometimes we can struggle with it if we don't have a Birds of Paradise, or maybe Utopia Sprawl naming black, then being able to still search up a vault and play it can be a nice solution. And then 13 Forests, since we do need a lot of those for Utopia Sprawl, and a Boseiju, which can also come in handy at blowing up opposing non-basics, or maybe answering artifacts or enchantments. Could also play some black-green dual lands, but that means taking more damage, so I've been happy with this configuration so far. So yeah, let's jump in some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw with a promising hand. Elves into Kiora plus another Elves, setting up Storm the Festival. We'll see what kind of lures deck our opponent's running. Mana Confluence could be a 4-color deck here, maybe the Sacrifice combo deck. Unstable Amulets. Finds a land. Okay, so we'll stick to the plan. And then Cavalier's a nice pickup as well. So we're off to a promising start. Opponent's got the Ocelots, so it's more of an energy deck. Alright, so I could play Oath, and then Nykthos starts generating mana for us. That seems fine. Or we can save Nykthos for next turn in case we find another copy with Cavalier, so we can make a big burst of mana for Storm the Festival. It's gonna be Boseiju. And a Utopia Sprawl. So Utopia Sprawl enchants Forests. Could already name black here, I don't think that's a problem. So that's ready to cast Cauldron eventually.
Let's get moving.
And then I guess we've already played land for turn, so it's just gonna be Oath. And hit Lenor Elves. Alright, I regret naming black now. But I don't think it's gonna end up mattering too much. So our opponent's not off to a blazing fast start. They weren't able to gain life to enable Ocelot last turn. Bombardments. Alright, that can maybe mow down some of our elves. That's where having a Delighted Halfling at 2 toughness can be useful. Surviving 1 damage effects and also potentially making our planeswalkers uncounterable. But it can also have drawbacks when it doesn't make green mana early. There's the Nightmare, so opponent's not taking out any of our elves, and Nykthos is looking mighty fine. So playing elves. Want to tap our lands before tapping our mana creatures in case we end up finding a ley line, so the elves can make more mana. Fnatic does not have any devotion if we eternalize it, so that's not a priority, although it would draw a card with Kiora. So play elves, play Nykthos, make mana, cast Storm the Festival, and take it from there. Might be able to combo off this turn already if we get lucky. And we hit Karn plus Leyline, seems good. So our elves now tap for additional mana. Karn can get Chain Veil. And then I think we just combo off from here. So our opponent will have to maybe interact. Cast Chain Veil. Can activate it. I guess I might be 1 mana short here. Although never mind, because with Chain Veil activating, Kiora gets an additional untap as well. So that's just enough, I think. So Karn can minus again. I'm fine if they take it out with bombardments. We'll get Cauldron. Kiora untaps Nykthos. And Utopia Sprawl. Could also go with elves, but then they could remove it in response, so the land's safer. Activate Nykthos. And then, I guess what we're missing is an additional Kiora or Karn in the graveyard. So that's where I guess now we need to get lucky with Storm the Festival, as opposed to having the guaranteed win. Another Nykthos helps. So we can try and flash back another Storm. Still hoping to hit a Kiora. Karn and another Nykthos. Yeah, that should help. So keep 5 loyalty Karn. Keep making more mana. So, yeah, still missing maybe a little bit of extra mana here. Karn can minus twice. Could also think about using other abilities. Or I can just get one of my finishers here. Could Mindslaver the opponent, that seems kind of fun. Yeah, you know what? Let's take that approach. Mindslaver my opponents. So they won't be able to necessarily combo me. And then maybe I plus to keep the loyalty high, so we can get back the burst next turn. Alright, that seems good enough. So we've Mindslavered our opponents. Yeah, what I needed is an extra untap of the Chain Veil to really keep comboing. And sure, I'll attack. We're Mindslavering the opponent next turn, so they're going to be hurting one way or another. They might want to sack the Pride to deal damage to one of my things right now, while they still can. Alright, they took it. Could also do some fun loops where we Tormod script ourselves to exile the Mindslaver and then get it back with Karn. Alright, so our opponent's got a Galvanic Discharge, a Jani, so probably okay to play an extra mana Confluence to deal them more damage. And then if I play a Jani... Alright, opponent's gonna scoop it up. We could basically destroy all of the opponent's own things, and then Bombardment maybe going face, and that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play with a very promising hand. We could turn to Storm the Festival with this hand, if they don't bolt the birds. So let's see what we're up against. Turn 1 Mountain, we get to untap, and there's Nykthos. So make 9 mana on turn 2, Storm the Festival, and take it from there. Do I want to play a Lenor Elves first? I guess we can wait. We hit another Nykthos if we want it, so we can keep going, and then Cavalier's got to be the pick. Could also grab Oath of Nissa, although we get to flash back a Storm the Festival. So I think we just keep it going here. And then now I play the Elves. Flashback Storm and hope to hit some Planeswalkers. If I grab Nykthos, I guess I can play a Leyline and activate it. Yeah, maybe that's still actually better than Fnatic here. Since we might mill another Storm the Festival to just keep comboing. And we actually did. So, still can't quite afford to play a Leyline before tapping Nykthos. But our opponent has seen enough. Turn 2, and we've already cast triple Storm the Festival pretty much. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a hand that desperately wants a Nykthos, as well as some of our Curve Toppers, perhaps. So right now it is kind of a ramp into nothing, but at least we've got the ramp part taken care of. Yeah, this one's debatable. Turn 1 would play a bird, turn 2 we can Utopia Sprawl, play a couple elves, or maybe play Kiora. But then we're not doing much. Yeah, I think this might be a mulligan, despite having a Leyline. This seems a little bit better to me. Although we do have to get rid of a card, which is a tough decision. I might want to keep Storm over Karn initially, although there are matchups where I want to get Karn in play as soon as possible to get a Tormod script or just to shut down artifacts. But Karn by itself, without a ton of mana, may not be great, whereas Storm can find whatever we need. So it's going to be a fair fight without any ley lines in play. Opponent a sacrifice deck, so probably the mono-black Nightmare deck. Okay, so a ley line will be useful next turn with our mana creatures. And then we're ready to Storm on the following turn. But our opponent's also a combo deck capable of going off pretty quickly. And Phyrexian Tower here represents 3 mana basically, with a treasure from Freebooter. Priest of Gix makes 3 mana. So there's a non-zero chance our opponent could already win the game here. Diabolic Intent. So they're going for the Nightmare most likely. Yep. 2 cards left in hand. But they already have Priest in the graveyard. So they don't need much, but Karn could potentially shut things down by getting Tormod scripts for starters. Yeah, that's going to be the play. Can't afford to play a leyline first. So that can exile something they try and reanimate. And may as well attack for 1. Skull Speaker draws a card. So reading the Nightmare. So yeah, they will target something and then we can Tormod script in response. Alright, opponent's already going for it. And getting rid of a priest seems worthwhile. Karn can get back Tormod script once again. Now Karn won't be able to get more graveyard hate, but we could get a liquid metal coating and then play it targeting an opposing land, so they wouldn't be able to activate it. Don't quite have the mana for Mindslaver or anything along those lines. So I kind of like the liquid metal coating just to slow the opponent down. And then I can play a leyline. Could also Storm the Festival to be fair, but we'll play it safe. Play coating. Put a stop in the opponent's upkeep. Trying to think if there's a reason to maybe keep the coating available, but I think I'm okay just going for land here. Turn it into an artifact, and because of Karn, they won't be able to activate it now. So their opponent's gonna float a mana, but I don't think they have any instants to use. And then next turn we can coating a land, and then plus with Karn to essentially blow it up. So our opponent's got a lot of work to do here. Eventually Karn can get Cauldron, which can maybe start setting up some of our graveyard loops. But yeah, let's coating the Phyrexian Tower. Plus to blow it up, since mana value is 0, so it immediately dies. And then we can Storm the Festival. Can maybe play Birds first to increase our devotion. Hitting another Karn, and Nykthos to make more mana, although our devotion's not incredibly high, so might be better off with another leyline actually. Unless we need the mana from Karn right now. What is Karn getting out of the sideboard? If I get Nykthos, devotion's 5, so I'll have 6 mana. With 6 mana, I can cast a Mindslaver but not activate it. I can burst but not cast anything out of the graveyard, since I can get back Tormod scripts. So yeah, in that case I think I just go Leyline Karn. And then minus. Can get a Cityscape Leveler, or we can go for Mindslaver here. Or we can already set up our Chain Veil for the future, in case we hit something with Storm the Festival. Sure. And then I can play it already. Skullspeaker attacks Karn. I don't think we mind. Can always plus it first. They've got another tower. And another priest. Alright, we could be in danger here. Since they already have a Nightmare in hand. Sack their creature. So with priests they can keep looping and drawing cards, basically. Play priests, make 3 mana, play Nightmare, and they have another priest, so I think our opponent's gone infinite, and they'll be able to combo off from here. Yeah, that's a shame. That extra Phyrexian Tower definitely helped. And I'm not sure I could have really stopped them in any way, since we were out of graveyard hate. And again, there's nothing else in my sideboard that would have really stopped them that I could have cast. If only the burst could get back artifacts, then we can get back Tormod scripts and prevent them from looping again. But yeah, I think our opponent's got us. So yeah, it's impressive that they managed to rebuild, finding 2 more priests after we exiled one. So yeah, opponent's making infinite mana by looping the 2 priests, and then now they're just looking for a win condition. But with a draw from Skullspeaker, they'll eventually find it, or they can mill it with Supplier. So that means a Marionette Master, for instance, or I guess Marionette's Apprentice, the 2-mana version, would be one of them. And there it is. So yeah, opponent should have it. So for this specific matchup, having some more heavy-duty graveyard hates that can maybe stick around would be better. But of course the upside of Tormod Script is that you can activate it the same turn you minus Karn, so you don't need any additional mana. But yeah, opponent's got the infinite loop with double priest, just gotta make sure they go through the motions correctly. But it seems like they've got it covered. This is going to take a second. Small chance our opponent would time out, but we're not going to play for that. But they've demonstrated a loop, so we'll scoop it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a somewhat risky hand. If our elves get answered and we don't hit more land drops. Also counting on drawing Nykthos to really go off. But I think it's worth a try. Want to play elves first and then Utopia Sprawl turn 2. So we can tap the elves for green, enchant our land so it can immediately make 2 mana. And play another elves and Oath of Nissa. Hopefully hitting another land drop. But yeah, if our opponent can remove the elves, then this looks a lot less impressive. So I probably need to Oath, hope to hit a land, and then I can still play another 1-drop out. Alright, it's gotta be Boseiju here. And then I guess we'll stick to the plan, play Llanowar Elves. So our opponent black-green, and another answer to my elves. So they came prepared to answer creatures. Okay, so in that case, Utopia Sprawl. Play another Oath. and Nykthos the pick. Alright, so next turn we can Storm the Festival. Dark Confidence, nice. A Blast from the Past, a recent addition through Jumpstart. So our opponent's a mid-range deck. Should be able to go over the top. And Storm the Festival is one of our better cards, since we can also flash it back. Fnatic being a blocker is nice, it's probably going to get answered, but then we can Eternalize it. Nykthos to keep going, although I guess we wouldn't be able to activate it here unless I select a Forest as well. And then we won't have enough mana to flash back Storm. So at that point I might just go for Fnatic plus a Leyline to increase her devotion, have a blocker to protect Kiora. And if they remove Fnatic, I can Eternalize it, draw a card. Scavenging Ooze could maybe mess up some of our graveyard synergies. But looks like they don't have enough green to exile Storm the Festival. So they're just going after Kiora. Alright, so I can still flash back Storm. Question is if I want to play a Leyline first. I think we keep Kiora to untap Nykthos. Could also untap Nykthos right now. Kinda depends whether we hit another Kiora or another Nykthos first. Now, you know what? Let's untap Nykthos first. And just make more mana right now. Or what's maybe even better is play a Leyline and then tap Nykthos. Just to up our devotion slightly. And then I can still Eternalize Fnatic. That one doesn't add devotion. And then Karn Cavalier versus... get another Nykthos to keep comboing. But yeah, Karn's gonna be the pick and Cavalier seems awesome here. Unless I'm guaranteed to win if I get Nykthos. But I don't think I necessarily am. If I get Chain Veil, I can play and activate. But I only get one additional untap from Kiora. It is tempting, but we're already timing out, so I don't think I have enough time to fully combo off. And we hit a Nykthos anyway. Alright, so I guess I might have to keep comboing anyway. So I've got to speed up. Make more mana. Get Chain Veil. Activate Chain Veil. Alright, and our opponent scoops it up. So, yeah, pretty sure we have a lethal here. Since with our 12 floating mana, 4 to activate Chain Veil, we have 8 mana floating with 1 more land untapped. So we can now activate our Planeswalkers twice, which means Kiora can untap Chain Veil again, which then taps once again. Kiora can untap once again, so doesn't really push us forward, but that does mean we get to activate all Planeswalkers 3 times this turn. And then I can untap Nykthos with 1 final Kiora untap, make a bunch more mana. With that mana, Karn can get our Cauldron out of the sideboard. What we're missing, I guess, is a second Kiora to really seal the deal here, because then we could keep untapping Nykthos and Chain Veil to set up our infinite loop. So we would still kind of rely on the top deck of Fnatic drawing off Kiora, or maybe Karn getting something else out of the sideboard. So I guess that's where maybe having a Heart of Kiran to reduce the loyalty of our Planeswalkers to get them in the graveyard would be useful. But we could also just Mindslaver our opponent and figure it out from there. Alright, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have a Leyline plus Nykthos. Maybe missing a finisher, but Oath of Nissa can try and find a Planeswalker. Facing a Lurrus deck. Could be Energy. Kiora's always nice. So Karn versus Cavaliers now the choice. So Karn is what we'll eventually need. Cavalier plays quite well with Kiora and Fnatic, so I'm kind of leaning Cavalier here, and then hoping we find Karn later. If we mill Storm the Festival, that's great too. I see, it's an Aura deck instead. Alright, that changes the game a little bit. So our opponent could have answers to our enchantments now. And yep, there's a Shelter by Ghosts. At least I won't be able to search up another copy, since I now already have one in play. But yeah, Light Pause can present a very fast clock. Can still play Cavalier, thanks to Nykthos. Opponent giving a Light Pause haste with a Hammer Hand. And an Ethereal Armor. So they can find another 1-mana aura. Vigilance, take 9. So we may not get another turn here. Alright, so it's gotta be Cavalier. If I play Kiora, so let's say we make 5 mana. Can play Kiora, untap Nykthos, I guess that's still worth it here. Just to get the extra cards flowing. Now I guess we do have Boseiju as a way to blow up an enchantment, but getting back Fnatic with Summoning Sickness isn't super helpful. And if I Boseiju the Sheltered by Ghosts, then our opponent can search up another copy if they play 2-mana aura, so that could actually be worse for us. Do I want to blow up Ethereal Armor? Again, they can search one up. So it feels kind of pointless. So I'll just pass. If we could Boseiju at instant speed, it would be a different story. But yeah, now we're just looking pretty dead to the Ruckus, giving Menace. Alright, that's too bad. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand's missing a ley line, but still a keeper with multiple birds and elves. Ramping out Cavalier, and then hoping to find some goodies. Opponent on what could be a Charbelcher deck, so finding Karn is going to be the priority. Leyline, sadly, showing up a little bit late to the party. Because yeah, Karn just prevents them from activating their artifact, plus can find additional answers. Never mind, might be a Reanimator deck. As we see Overlord get back Tamio. We're just gonna play Kiora into another birds. And then hopefully play Cavalier. Deluge will wipe our board, sadly. Alright, so can still play Oath and Alenor Elves. Finding another birds versus a land. At this point I might actually prefer the land, even though it's representing less devotion. Insulates us a little bit better from another deluge. So Tamio into sewers. Opponent might be playing some counter spells too here. Well, we're just gonna run out of Cavalier and see what happens. That resolves. And found Nykthos, perfect. Draw Storm the Festival, and then there's no need to untap anything. So we're off to a promising start. Next turn, Nykthos lets us cast a lot of spells. Could even play another card first, just to up our devotion. But opponent's gonna wipe the board. Do I want to get anything back? Another Cavalier, I guess, would be fine. Opponent's got another Tamio. And then next turn, Overlord turns into a creature. And another Nykthos is not super helpful, but I guess I'll still select it here. And then seems worth it to play Oath, so I can maybe hit another land drop for turn. Fnatic would also be decent. We've already activated Kiora. Yeah, I might just go for a forest. And then next turn we could storm the festival. Opponent's just passing. Could try Cavalier first, keeping Nykthos untapped, since there's only 2 copies of Nykthos that we can hit left in the deck. And this way, if I hit a land that's not Nykthos, I can still activate Nykthos with 3 more devotion afterwards. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. That resolves. Hit a forest. Of course, I could have made mana with Nykthos and then hit another Nykthos, which could have netted us more overall. But those odds didn't seem super high. So, untap Nykthos with Kiora. And our opponent's going to scoop it up, could tap it, make a bunch more mana, and then start storming, maybe Kiora to untap it once again. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand is hoping to find Nykthos with Oath of Nissa, pretty much. Yeah, if we don't, the hand's maybe a little slow. But even if we just find any other land, we're looking at maybe turn 3 Karn, turn 4 Cavalier. I'll try it. The upside's pretty high if we do find Nykthos. Opponent's a red-green and looting, so it's a graveyard deck. Which variety? It looks like the Omniscience build. Birds of Paradise now in option 2. I don't think our opponent's deck will have a lot of removal. So then Birds is a bit better turn 1 compared to Utopia Sprawl, since we can now enchant or land and tap it for 2 mana right away. But the opponent is a combo deck that can go off pretty quickly as well. They're gonna try to use the Woodland to turn it into an Omniscience and then cast cards like Atraxa for free. Okay, so Birds makes green. Utopia Sprawl on green. And then we shall play Oath, hoping to find Nykthos. And we found it, although wouldn't be able to tap it for mana right now. That's where having a different leyline would have done it, since then Birds could have made 2 mana instead of 1. But yeah, I'm not gonna complain. Opponent's still missing 1 type for Delirium. They don't have Omniscience in the graveyard yet, so I don't think they can combo us this turn. And next turn, Karn can find answers out of the sideboard. As we see, Godfarer's Gift and Ulamog go to the graveyard. Alright, so step 1, activate Nykthos, play Cavalier, which still leaves ample mana for Karn. So can I risk it with another Cavalier? I could still play Karn, get Tormod's Crypt, which is probably good enough for now, as opposed to Karn and get something bigger. And then with Nykthos we can keep going. So 18 mana, flashback Storm the Festival. And there's Kiora, plus we haven't tapped our Birds yet, so Leyline might be slightly better. It's about the same. The other Leyline does add more devotion, but pretty sure we can figure out a combo kill from here with the Chain Veil. And yeah, opponent scoops it up, get Chain Veil, play it, activate it. We've got 2 untaps left with Kiora, 1 for Chain Veil, 1 for Nykthos. Those can essentially keep going, making all the mana we would ever need. Karn can then minus a bunch of times. And yeah, with 2 Karns we can basically keep looping those with Cauldron and Restorative Burst and eventually mill the opponent out. Although we could also figure out other ways to win with Karn getting Mindslaver and other cards out of the sideboard. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a triple leyline opener, but no real follow-up until we find Karn. If we draw Nykthos, it can immediately tap for 8 mana, thanks to 8 devotion. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, you know what, if our opponent's playing a bunch of discard spells, just putting 3 leylines in play on turn 0 seems kind of nice. And how often do you get the opportunity? Any mana creature we draw will make 3 mana right away. And our opponent looks to be a sacrifice, maybe combo deck with Samwise and Cauldron Familiar. So Karn finding Graveyard Hate could be important, as our opponent's got the Birthing Ritual. And yeah, opponent could already combo off next turn. It's going to be an Ajani for now. Not a combo piece, but still a good card individually, of course. And our opponent can easily transform it and deal damage with a 0 ability with cards like Goblin Bombardment to enable it. It's going to be another Ritual. So your opponent can sack their cat, transforming a Ajani. Although they won't be able to activate it this turn at least. And then they can still sack the Witness to keep digging. And there's a Cauldron Familiar. Bombardment in the back pocket. Alright, it's just going to be Kiora, untap, play birds. Although the birds is just going to die. Still seems fine to make them do it here, as opposed to being able to go face with a Ajani or Bombardment. And then Karn could get Tormod's Crypts, although that's not going to be enough here. And looks like our opponent might be able to just win right now with Bombardment, Familiar. They would still need an extra food token, I guess. So opponent goes for a Raptor. And the Raptor hits Bombardment. Wow, that was lucky. So now they have the combo with the extra food token. Sack Familiar. Bringing it back with a food token. Familiar enters, triggering Samwise. Making a food, a rinse and repeat, and that's infinite damage. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, and this hand can cast a turn 2 Cavalier of Thorns. So, definitely keeping. We have 6 Devotion, turn 1 Birds, turn 2 can tap Nykthos for 6 mana, or 7 mana. Facing Elves, so opponent's not going to have much interaction. And they weren't off to the fastest start themselves. Turn 2 Lookout. So, with this start, I'm quite hopeful. So, activate Nykthos. And I guess I could have even played Oath first, since the Birds taps for 2 mana. So we can increase our devotion slightly beforehand. And then finding Kiora. So we can play Kiora, untapping Nykthos. This is all on turn 2, by the way. Tap it for more mana. And then we can Cavalier and still Storm the Festival afterwards. Hitting a forest. And then next turn we should be able to win with Karn getting Chain Veil especially. So I'm already going to name black to set up the combo next turn. And now we hit... I guess I could keep going with Nykthos and try and win right now. If we get Nykthos plus... I guess a Leyline of the Guild Pact makes the most additional mana. Is this a turn 2 win? That's kind of crazy. Play Karn, minus get Chain Veil. And yeah, we've got 13 mana floating, a ton of devotion, so getting Chain Veil is just game over, but we could also get other finishers like Cityscape Leveler to get the job done. But by getting Chain Veil, we can cast it, activate it for 4 mana, still 5 mana floating, Kiora gets an additional untap, so we can untap Nykthos, make a boatload of mana. Karn gets 2- to get another card, so we can get Cauldron, which I guess at that point we might struggle to get enough things out of the graveyard back, but we can still flash back Storm the Festival, so as long as Storm hits another Karn or Kiora, we should be off to the races. So yeah, this monogreen Devotion deck can be incredibly explosive if you start out with a few ley lines and a Nykthos, and then at least we've been able to explain the loop with the Chain Veil and Cauldron, even if we didn't quite get to demonstrate it, but most of the time the opponent will just scoop it up once they see enough Planeswalkers and 20 mana floating. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.